Welcome back. We've got some more new numbers from our NBC News Stay Tuned poll. These numbers focus on Gen Z Americans, and they are highly critical of President Trump's handling of inflation. Among Americans aged 18 to 29, nearly 7 in 10 disapprove of Mr. Trump's handling of inflation and the cost of living. That is more than our poll found of Americans as a whole. Joining me now with a much deeper dive into the polls is my NBC News colleague, Savannah Sellers. Savannah, it's great to have you. Thanks for joining me. You are following all things Gen Z in this poll. Younger Americans, as I just said, have a more negative opinion of the president's handling of inflation than Americans overall. What can you tell us and what stands out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Kristen. Thanks, as always, for having me with you. We're so excited about this poll. Just starting to roll out right now. This is the first time I'm able to talk about it, is here on your show. But exactly what you said, you nailed it. They really do have this negative view of inflation, of the cost of living. And I was out in the field. I was all over the state of Virginia just yesterday talking with young people from both sides of the political aisle. But I heard from multiple just simply about the price of things like eggs. The price of eggs came up, as it does with every generation, right, Kristen? Also, I spoke with one young woman who says, I'm living at home with my parents because I can't pay for rent otherwise. And my friends who aren't wish that they had a safety net like I do. But you just showed that graphic right there, 69% disapproving of the president's handling of the economy in those particular ways, Kristen.
It's so fascinating to hear those conversations, Savannah, because it really brings these numbers to life. And I know you also had some fascinating numbers from Gen Z voters on traditional gender roles that broke down along gender lines. What did you find there?
So, Kristen, this was pretty fascinating. So what we asked in the poll was, do you believe that America would be stronger if women held traditional gender roles? And we gave the examples of homemaking or raising children at home. If you look at this graph right here, I know it's a lot of numbers, so just everybody kind of take it in for a second. But look at the difference here in gender, kind of the split and the flip. On the strongly disagree end side of this, if America would be stronger, if women were essentially holding those roles within the household, 58% of young women strongly disagree. This is 18 to 29-year-olds. Look at the other end of the spectrum. Who's more likely to agree with this? It's young men. Those are those purple bars on the side of your screen. And even if you just add up the numbers of the whole here, putting the genders together, 34% of young people did agree with this statement, which was pretty surprising to some of the young people that I spoke with in the field. I will say, though, the conversations I had, Kristen, IRL in real life yesterday, broke along gender lines as well. Two young women telling me, I don't want to be known as a homemaker. One said, I want to be known as me. I'm Corinne. I'm not necessarily a homemaker. Whereas a young man, I spoke with named Jalen, he said he does believe that women holding those roles strengthens the family and therefore makes our children stronger later on. And actually, all three of them said that, just generally, Kristen, I thought this was interesting. They are seeing that shift to a more conservative way of believing in things and policies among young men. Certainly in the conversations I had yesterday, that was true.
So fascinating to hear that, particularly one of the ongoing timeless debates, Savannah, really fascinating. I know you've been looking at another aspect of this poll, which, talk about debate. This has been a big debate across the country right now, and it relates to due process. Walk us through those numbers.
Yeah, so, Kristen, this one was really stark just in, Gen Z far and away, believes this the most strongly, that people who are here on, let's say, a student visa or a green card or a work visa, that they should have the same due process protections, the same legal rights as U.S. citizens. Look at your screen right now. Very important, somewhat important. You add those two up, 92% of Gen Z says that this is important to them. That was far and away much higher than every other generation. And when I spoke, again, yesterday in the field, both sides of the political aisle did agree with this. Now, where I will say there was a little bit of a break, especially when it comes down to ideology on both sides of the aisle here, was exactly what are the grounds, for example, for revoking a student visa? I asked that question. Some people said, literally one said to me, murder or assault, but not speaking your mind. That was her line. Whereas I heard from another who said, yes, I absolutely do believe that they should have the same rights as Americans, but I do think that the line of protest and the line of speech used on campuses is something that should be considered, and that it's a privilege to be in America and not a right, Kristen.
Well, this is something that's going to continue to be in the spotlight. There's no doubt about that. Savannah, just fascinating. And again, your conversations, really some of the most interesting findings in addition to those poll numbers. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kristen. Good to see you.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.